Welcome. We are with Secretary of Education Linda McMahon. Secretary, thank you so much for being here, for participating in this. This is just amazing. This White House is doing so much for new media. You know, you watched the election take place, and you had Joe Biden and Kamala Harris relying on the CNNs, MSNBCs of the world, and President Trump and Vice President Vance decided, you know what, we're going to take a different path because we think we can reach the American people in new ways. And I think they were right on that. So you have done tremendous work already. I can't believe it's only been since January. I feel like this is years worth of progress that you guys have made in such a short time. And I want to ask you about, obviously President Trump just several days ago, he's signing orders. You guys have orders to dismantle the Department of Education. What does that mean in practice? I know there was a lot of reduction, but what else does that mean in practice?
Well, Sarah, first of all, thank you for having me. And you are absolutely right that podcasts and new form of media does reach a much broader audience. And that's one of the reasons I'm so happy to participate today, because I think it's important that people do understand what the Department of Education does not do.
Yes.
Because there are certainly impressions that the Department of Education actually educates people. We don't. Right. That's not our job. We don't establish curriculum. We don't buy books. We don't hire teachers or principals or administrators. You know, we're in position to help funnel funds that are appropriated by Congress for Title I schools, which means poverty level schools. Sure. For children who have disabilities through the IDEA program, which, I think can go back to where they were before there was a Department of Education, which is more than likely going to come through HHS, and I've spoken to Secretary Kennedy about that. He's very anxious to receive them. So the Department of Education going away simply means, and this is what the president really wanted to focus on, we're just getting rid of the bureaucracy that's standing in between the kind of funding that is necessary to flow through the states, while letting the states determine how they are going to educate their own children, to have their own policies. Now, he's a strong proponent of school choice. He doesn't want any child trapped in a failing school, and certainly advocating for that. But that has to be decided at the state level by state legislators. But to the extent that we might help get bills passed through Congress that might be educational savings accounts or scholarship accounts to allow that to happen through tax credits, et cetera. Department of Education would be fully on board with helping to support that. But dismantling the Department of Education simply means that we are removing the bureaucracy and let education happen at its most effective place, which is closest to the student in the state with the parents and the educators who were there.
Yeah, and I just think that it's been so instrumental in all of these departments. I was just speaking with Secretary Kennedy, and he just announced that they're having a restructuring as well because of the bloat, because of their bureaucracy, because of all the red tape, the redundancy. It's about time that we had a president who was serious about that. I feel like you are in kind of a unique position because coming in, you're like, I'd just really like to work myself out of a job. And you don't usually see that with government officials trying to have less power rather than, more. So when you look at, I was actually here last week, and I went over to the Department of Education where there was a protest, and they were protesting, I assume you, and also what I found to be fascinating was Elon Musk. And so they had this chalk art that they drew on the ground.
Well, I was upstairs at a window looking out.
Were you?
Yes, I was.
Maybe you saw me while I was over there with my camera phone.
I didn't see any reporters. I just saw them drawing on the sidewalk.
Okay, well, we showed up shortly after that.
I wish I had seen you.
Yes. And they kept chanting, I'm sure you probably heard them if you went downstairs at all, Elon Musk has got to go. And the drawings were, this very scary Elon Musk holding a school, breaking it in half. And it was all very dramatic that Elon Musk was ruining their schools. And I just think it's just, to me, it seems like a perfect representation of the problem with education in this country is that you have these people who really think that that's what's happening, who really think that Elon Musk is stealing money from their children, when in actuality, as you mentioned, you've got the Department of Education that the White House has been very clear. Students with disabilities will still get funding. The Pell Grants will still get, all of these things will still be in place, and yet they're acting as if children are going to die because you guys are trying to get rid of the bureaucracy.
It's the most ridiculous thing. And, you know, when the president asked me to take on this job, and I told him, I said, you know, I don't come from the world of education.
Yeah.
And he said, I don't need that. He said,
Good.
because this job, and I knew what the job was,
Yeah.
because clearly he campaigned on it, and I was co-chair of the transition committee, so I knew as we were bringing, you know, cabinet members through and helping to decide on the cabinet what this job is going to entail. Mm-hmm. But what he said to me is, he said, look, I need an executive with management and leadership experience. Mm-hmm. He said, I know what you did when you were at the Small Business Administration. I know what you've done in your private life. And we've been friends for about 30 years. And he said, so I know you'll get this done. And from Elon and from, you know, the Doge perspective, mm-hmm. I have welcomed that outside audit to come into the Department of Education. And they have, you know, through very rapid use of technology, shown us where a lot of the bloat was, a lot of programs that were repetitive and redundant across departments. I mean, and you think about this, I don't know how many departments we have in total in Department of Education, but each one of them had their own Department of Human Resources.
Oh, gosh.
And Communications. Mm-hmm. And so we've now consolidated them. We have had what's called a RIF, you know, which is, you know, a government restructuring in workforce. And we have consolidated departments, and we've shut down some of the outside departments. We brought them now inside, not all, but a good number of them. So we've reduced our overhead by about half. We're going to save about $500 million a year through what I believe are mostly redundancies.
Yeah.
And we'll operate more efficiently, and everybody is on board and on pace to do what it is we need to do. So from my perspective, working with the Doge group that has been in education, we work together. They find things, they make suggestions, I make decisions, and it's a great team of getting things done. So I welcome these bright. I don't think we have a woman now. I think they're all guys at this point. We did have one we called a Dogette at one point. But this team is really working together, and the fact that their technology and the rapid deployment of their technology through AI start to sort like backlogs of cases or backlogs of policy that we have, and to get through them quicker. It's just amazing.
See, you're telling me these things, and I think it all sounds great, right? The average American with common sense is like, this sounds $500 million a year you're saving us. That's amazing. Yeah. But then you have the AFT and you have the NAACP, who has already filed lawsuits saying that this is unconstitutional. What is your response to their reaction?
Well, you know what? We are working, we believe, within the confines of the law. That has certainly been the goal. But when you're moving at the speed that we're moving at, and Elon himself has said, look, we're going to make some mistakes. We'll have to pull some things back. But let's don't let that stop us.
Right.
Let's move forward. And when we reach, none of us are doing anything that's going to put anything out of commission, that's going to destroy anything.
Sure.
But there are nuances and there are policy things that, okay, if we've stepped over the bounds of that, well, let's pull it back.
Right.
But let's continue to make this incredible progress moving forward, which I believe in the end, when the citizens of our country take a look at what has been accomplished, they're going to say, thank God. Yep. Who would have thought 4 years ago that we could actually have done an audit of the United States government through people who are volunteering to come in and do it?
Right.
Especially Elon Musk. Oh my goodness, the president has mentioned so many times what he has given up.
Yeah.
And look at what's happening in showrooms of Tesla dealerships and that sort of thing. I mean, it's a big sacrifice on his part to do this.
Yeah, it is.
We owe him a debt of gratitude.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Okay, last question I have, because I want to be respectful of your time. How do you think that at the federal level, how do we prepare young people to enter the workforce?
Well, that is really something that I was all the way back to when I ran for the U.S. Senate when I was in Connecticut in 2009 and 10. I lost. I ran again 11 and 12. I lost again. Very, very hard to be conservative in Connecticut.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I talked about even then was the fact that we were ignoring our skill-based training and education. Part of the Secretary of Education that I am talking about as I travel is we need to focus now on making sure we do have skill-based training as part of our education. I like having short-term Pell Grants. We can get certificates for plumbers or welders that they might only take 6-8 weeks to get that done. They're then certified, they can go to work.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, for those who couldn't afford to enter that program, that short-term Pell Grant gives them the ability to do that. And I think it's incumbent upon parents and upon, I think, our culture in general to not look at trade skills anymore, which means higher scale manufacturing as well as technology as default education for those who couldn't make it and go to college.
Right.
That's just crazy thinking.
Yeah.
When we have so much opportunity with, I think it's 8 million jobs right now in our country, unfulfilled.
Wow.
Because we don't have the workforce to fill them.
Yeah.
We're bringing in new companies, they're investing in our country. We have to make sure that we have that workforce to fill those jobs. And what we're also working on is with other companies who are funding their own apprenticeship programs to train these workers to come in. We're also doing it with community colleges to work with their community and businesses to say, this is the kind of curriculum and training you need to fulfill what we need in the workforce. So much going on, so much to do.
Yes. Well, we appreciate it. I, especially as the mother of 2 young boys who my older one constantly is like, well, when I go to college, and I'm like, listen, if that's for you, that's fine, but that's not the only path. And we need to take a look at all of the paths and figure out which one makes the most sense rather than some cookie cutter. So I appreciate all of the great work that you've been doing, Secretary. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me.
Thank you.
Really a pleasure.